The Truth About Suze. Written by Ed Easton and Kiri Pritchard McLean. Read by Morgana Robinson.
Love is what makes the world go around. It's a many splendid thing, and people have been known to be courageous and cantankerous in the pursuit of Cupid. Alan is in love with love. He's never been in love in the real world, but as an avid reader of romantic novels, there's not much he hadn't lived through. Been a groom bedding the rich landowner's daughter? He'd lived that dream via a stable relationship. Romanced a fair maiden while being captain of a pirate ship? Mutiny on my bounty covered that, twice. Penetrated a lion at dusk. Master of the Pride had allowed him a foray into that fantasy. For the record, he was also a lion in that one. Alan worked at Tripec Plastics Limited. He loved his job, and he was good at it. He'd never had a day off sick, and never in 15 years been late. He was yet to be recognised at the annual awards ceremony, but that was because the Outstanding Employee Award was always won by Gary. Gary wasn't outstanding. He was the son of the CEO, utterly incapable, and Alan had once seen him eat blue tack. A while back, Gary had been sneering at Alan's bachelor status in the canteen. Normally, Alan was very good at rising above the comments, chowing down on his Scotch egg and sinking into his romantic novels. Not that day, though. People had started to laugh at Alan, and Alan hated being laughed at. "You're wrong, Gary. I've got a wife. Her name's Suze. She's a humanitarian aid worker." The lie danced out, years of fantasy informing each syllable. His colleagues immediately swallowed the fantasy. Why wouldn't they? Alan was excellent husband material. It had taken 2 years, but he'd perfected the running of a romantic, sumptuous bubble bath. He would always drain the bath after any given successful run, however. He was a shower man. So it was. Suze was born. Yes, he'd named her Suze, because he'd never met a Suze he didn't like, or maybe because he'd never met a Suze. Alan began mentioning Suze at work. In the canteen, he would recount tales of their romantic film marathons and trips to model villages. Bit by bit, Alan was able to live out his perfect relationship through the medium of fibs. But there was one person who didn't buy Alan's richly populated lies. Gary. "If you hold back that food from this village again," Alan crowed, another Suze tale in full swing, "I'll humanitarian you a new one!" Alan always enjoyed his Suze anecdotes, far more than anyone else. Gary's response was always the same. "When are we going to meet her?" Alan froze. He had forgotten to think of a location Suze was saving this time. Oh, she's gone away again. To Namby. Alan panicked. "Namby?" Gary pried. "Pamby. Namby Pamby. It's just past Europe," offered Alan, a bead of sweat descending his arse crack. Gary narrowed his eyes, world's best Gary mug in hand, and slinked off to his desk. One day, a large envelope dropped on Alan's desk with a thud. The annual awards ceremony invitation. He knew he would say he was picking Suze up from the airport, but he couldn't decide between Orphans in Taint, India, or water purification in Gooch, the Baltics. He scanned the invite inside and realised that his dream was finally coming true. He was nominated for outstanding services to punctuality and attendance. Tripec Plastics Limited had shown him affection as only a corporate institution knew how, with a 1-beverage maximum drinks reception and £15 worth of JML vouchers. Alan was ecstatic. He bounded to the canteen to show his co-workers. He wondered how humble he could pretend to be, whilst definitely making sure everyone knew he'd been nominated for the award, when Gary collared him. "Invitation says +1, Alan, and nominees are expected to bring their partners." "We'll finally get to meet Suze, if she's real, that is. Oh, I've googled Gooch. I'll be honest, I wish I hadn't. It's not a country." Alan panicked. He could feel everyone's eyes burning into his invitation on the table, with a big fat +1 written on it. Before he knew what was happening, he heard himself declare that Suze is real, Gary, and she wouldn't miss it for the world. She's been saving one village at a time. Alan had gone from being someone who told one white lie to the kind of man who fabricates a wife to dupe colleagues and, in one case, wriggle out of a funeral. "They're all going to laugh," he thought as he sat on his sofa. Alan wasn't to be defeated and decided he was going to go out and get himself a Suze, and he'll just have to iron out the details later. Yes, he'd go speed dating. Very modern. It didn't go well. It turns out it's far easier to turn pages than it is to turn heads in a busy church hall. Alan decided after a disastrous week of dating, his best bet was to strap on a pair and get drunk. If there was one thing Alan liked nearly as much as his novels, it was a Pinot Grigio and a good weep, then a sudden and unexpected sleep for 12 hours. Alan, bleary-eyed and dry-mouthed, blinked himself awake and sat up. What had happened last night? As his eyes focused, he spotted his laptop, open and out of battery, next to an empty box of Pinot and his bank card. There was a sharp knock at the door, and Alan, panicked, answered it. Minutes later, he was sat, befuddled, with brew in hand. He was not alone. There, sat slumped on the sofa, is what the uninitiated will call a pillow, but what the elite call a waifu. It's like a long pillow adorned with a high-quality print of a lady on it that a certain calibre of bachelor would use for companionship, comfort and gratification, but definitely not sex. The image on Alan's lengthy pillow was a very alluring, very undressed redhead. How embarrassing. Alan was, for the first time ever, not alone on a weekend. He had a guest, albeit an unwelcome one. Alan set about his weekend, business as usual. He would read his books and prepare for his next round of speed dating. Yes, Spy Love You should get him in the mood for love, or killing Russians. He'd look upon both as a win. But he couldn't bring himself to be immersed in international espionage. He felt like he was being watched. He decided to start getting ready for his date early. You can never be too punctual. But which shirt to wear? The ecru or the beige? If only he had someone to bounce ideas off. A female perspective. Alan, chuckling, placed the waifu on his sofa. A female perspective indeed. He'd already had a white wine spritzer and he was finding this a real hoot. I know you're a pillow, but don't go too soft on me. Tell me what you really think. Alan topped up his drink and scampered off, tittering. He re-entered the room in his beige shirt and gave a spin. He stopped. Too bland? OK, I'll try the other one. After a swift change into his favourite ecru shirt, Alan slid back into the living room, searching for approval. Better? He inquired, allowing himself another guffaw. What a laugh, he thought. What a harmless laugh. Sliding over to the pillow, Alan raised his glass. To teamwork. The spritzer sloshed onto the pillow's smooth cotton. Oh, golly, I'm so sorry. Alan immediately began blotting the spillage. He paused. What on earth was he doing, apologising to a pillow? During Operation Mop-Up, Alan caught sight of his watch. Oh, shoot! He was late for his dates. It's been a pleasure, doll, but another broad awaits. And off he went into the evening. The walk home was another story. Yet another night of turgid dates had dented Alan's vigour. Where was he going to find a Suze in time for the awards ceremony? Back at home, he started work on another bottle of white wine and settled on the sofa to watch The Notebook. Luxury. He must admit that having someone there to share his quips, popcorn and tears did feel nice, even if they were a pillow. The night escaped him, and when Alan awoke, he and the waifu had fallen, very naturally, into an embrace. Ever the gent, Alan was a little embarrassed. He wasn't normally that forward, particularly with soft furnishings. Sorry about that, he bleated. I'm not sure what happened. Too much vino. An unwelcome call to his phone shattered this delicate mood. It was Gary.
Alan, did you manage to send the Thompson files over to Henrietta?
Alan had done that Friday morning. Why was Gary calling him? He always did this.
Excited for the awards ceremony?
Leered Gary. Alan's chest tightened and his hands slicked with sweat. Course she is. Alan panicked, his voice quivering. Aren't you, Suze? Alan stared at the pillow, Suze. She's nodding, he added.
I bet she is. See you both for week Monday, Alan.
Gary was enjoying this way too much. Not if I see you first. Alan didn't know what that meant, but in the moment it seemed bang on.
What?
Uh-oh. Alan hadn't expected Gary to call his bluff. See you Monday? He repeated, and then quickly hung up. Heart pounding, Alan turned slowly to his waifu. I know exactly who I should be taking, Alan bravely stated. You. I should be taking you, Suze. I know what you're going to say. He held a finger to her soft lips before a protestation slipped out. Sue said nothing. What could she say? Heart pounding and dressed to the nines, Alan drove the couple over. He was nervous, but Sue's was a calming influence. The event was far bigger than Alan realised. The company had opted for the much larger John Virgo suite at the local leisure complex. Alan was so excited to see the smile wiped off Gary's face. His hands were tingling. The drive back was deathly quiet. Alan, apoplectic in the driver's seat. He didn't even have time to pick up his award, such was the ridicule. So many of his colleagues laughing right in his face, and it was all Sue's fault. What did you say to everyone? Alan fumed. Suze was keeping it stum. Tonight was supposed to be the greatest night of Alan's life. Instead, it had been moulded into a nightmare, and the architect was sat next to him. Well, Suze would pay. Pulling up to the edge of the forest, he dragged Suze by her corner out into the night. Hours later, Alan emerged from the trees and climbed wearily into his car. Calmer than before, Alan looked into the rear-view mirror to straighten his hair, only to be faced with a horror. Blood, bone, and a dash of vomit covered his face. Alan awoke the next day, nursing a hangover and a romance novel. A knock at the door shattered his haze. Who could that be? Thought Alan. His colleagues come to mock him? The police? No, just a package. Alan took it. He had a guest. His brand new waifu. Let's hope this Suze works out. For her sake.